This past year was perhaps remarkable for two big changes in India's politics. And I know the politicians all sitting here this evening will know what I mean. One, we saw the emergence of the angry Indian. Like never before, you had people, especially urbanites, who had traditionally been not very engaged with politics, not just displaying their anger, but coming out on the streets. Whether it was the anti-corruption movement started by Anna Hazare, or more recently, the protests we saw after the rape, the gang rape of Delhi's Braveheart, politicians suddenly had to deal with this new phenomenon of a very angry Indian. The corollary, of course, was that politicians who performed actually, as Pranoy was mentioning, got voted back. The second big change that took place this past year is a change that's been happening gradually but got solidified. The age of the chief minister. The age where power has actually been moving outwards from Delhi to the states. So much so that it is now believed that at least in one of the major political parties, a chief minister could be prime minister. What about the other political party? Those are some of the things we're going to talk about this evening. First, I'd like to call on stage somebody who's had many challenges this year, but remains one of the Congress's most successful chief ministers, Sheila Dikshit, Delhi Chief Minister. May I invite you on stage, ma'am? Ma'am, it's been a tough year. You just heard the parents of the young girl. It's been a year in which you, among all other politicians, have been pressurized to be accountable to your people. Not just the ones who vote for you, but even the ones who don't vote for you, the citizens. What has been your biggest learning this year?
Well, our biggest learning has been that the media has brought out what perhaps has never been talked about since, I think, the late 70s and early 80s. So that woke us all up, and this tragedy which took place in December last year was something which pricked everybody's conscience, that in a city, in a civilized city, the capital of our great nation, something like this could happen, and not in the middle of the night, but somewhere about 9 or 10 o'clock. It showed the apathy, both of the police, or the incompetence of the police, and the apathy of the people around. And I think what...
apathy of the politician as well, do you think, initially?
The politician was not available there. But it was the politician who reacted to it, and that is when the Justice Verma committee was formed, fast-track courts were formed, they're trying them out. And I think the outpouring of the people brought out this anguish, this angst against the situation very, very clearly. But I think it woke us up also, and woke up our conscience also. But I must tell you at the end of it all that it is not just the police or governance alone which can set this right. It's society also which has to awaken to what is going wrong with all of us, especially where our women are concerned.
Well, I want to talk politics and the changes we're seeing in just a moment. But since we so often, tonight we are dedicating this to the Indian woman. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I think it would be interesting to talk about is what happens to women in politics. And we have you on stage and Sushma ji right here in the audience. And I just wondered if Sushma ji, you'd like to say something to Sheila ji. Do you both believe that the women's bill will ever get passed in your lifetime? And if there's something across political differences that you share in common, despite being political opponents, as women in politics?
We have already supported the bill in Rajya Sabha. If the government brings the bill in Lok Sabha, naturally we will support the bill and get it passed.
Ma'am, do you think it will get passed in your lifetime?
No, I'll tell you. When there is a will, Sushma ji, there is a way.
Yes.
We brought
you bring the bill, not the will. Will is there. Bring the bill.
I'm not so sure. I think basically, and if I may share this with not only just all of you here, but the entire country who's watching this program, somewhere men are afraid of women. and women power.
Ma'am,
Now-
would you agree also in your party too? Rajnath ji is sitting next to you.
Let me just finish. Barkha ji,
Ji.
we took the step of giving 50% reservation to women in our MCD. And
BJP
it's
ruled
come out
states
very
did
well.
it much before than you did.
No, no, no.
All
no,
the
no.
BJP ruled
It
states
wasn't
did it
impa-
much
wasn't
before than you
effective.
did.
No, Sushma ji, I don't want to get into an argument of who did what. We did it. You perhaps thought of it, but we
Can
did
I ask
it.
you a different question before I call the other guests in? Do you feel women in politics are scrutinized in a different way from men in politics? Is a completely different standard applied to them?
In the beginning, yes, but eventually I think the gender does not remain important. It's the kind of work you do, the kind of delivery you have, and the way people look at you. I think a time
So it
does
evens
come
out.
that when gender is not the issue.
Well, we are going to talk about how power is shifting from Delhi to the states, the age of chief ministers. The age of chief ministers is possible prime ministers. I'd like to call on the stage, and if we can get chairs up for them as well, Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, if he can join us on the stage to talk about some of the challenges he's faced. And since we are talking about power moving from Delhi to the states, many believe it's regional leaders who will have an impact on what happens in 2014 or 13. So I'd like to request Ravi Shankar Prasad, senior leader of the BJP, to join us on the stage. And NK Singh of the JDU, please join us on the stage for a few minutes for what we hope will be a very interesting conversation
Should we stand?
about the nature of power. No, ma'am, keep sitting. Please.
Come on.
So, Omar, let me start with you. We have, in a sense, two generations of chief ministers here, from Sheila Dikshit to Omar Abdullah. What has changed in politics? You've had a very difficult year as well. In Jammu and Kashmir, many years do end up being difficult. That's not uncommon. But what has been your biggest learning? I'll ask the same question that I put to Sheila.
The biggest learning
Yeah.
is that nothing is too small to be taken seriously. The smallest things can become enormous problems if you don't recognize them for what they are right in the beginning. Time and again, we've seen that in Jammu and Kashmir over the last 25 years, that if you ignore small incidents, it's at your own peril. And that's a very costly lesson that we have learned over the last 2.5 decades.
Now, we're, of course, talking about the age of the chief minister, where the power is now being wielded in the states. And we have here a very interesting visual image of two leaders, different parties, same state, Bihar. And Bihar, it seems, is going to cause many rumbles in the few months to come. So let me start with you, Ravi Shankar Prasad. At a time when one of your chief ministers is a possible prime minister candidate, at a time when successful chief ministers can aspire to define the national stage, you have another chief minister, your ally Nitish Kumar, not very pleased.
Well, Barkha, you need to know that in Bihar, the BJP and JDU have been together for the last 18 years. 5 Lok Sabha elections together, 6 Vidhan Sabha elections together.
Will this one be together?
Why not? After all, we are two different political parties. We respect our allies. The country's politics has changed in the sense that the polity will be led by a major political party, around which we will have allies. Third front is history, having no promise for the future. In that scenario, there can be differences, but we trust our inner mechanism to resolve it.
So you'll be together this year end. The 8-month deadline is coming.
I don't have any reasons to doubt it.
NK Singh, chief minister...
And by the way, even Nitish Kumar, if you're referring to that, he also said the same thing. We are doing very well, and we hope to do well.
NK Singh, is Nitish Kumar a prime ministerial possibility?
Well, I think, Barkha, it's a question which he himself has answered repeatedly, including the answer which he gave yesterday, that the Prime Minister of India must come from a mainstream party. He also deeply believes that in view of what he believes in inevitable change of government, the Prime Minister of India must be someone who the BJP must decide and do so in consultation with the NDA. And let me also say, in response to what, also to add to what Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad said, that Bihar is an example of a spectacular success in economic development, a spectacular success where the alliance between the BJP and the Janata Dal United has brought about a qualitative change,
Will it
both
last?
in the quantum and the quality of change.
Will it last, Mr. N.K. Singh?
In politics, Barkha, please remember the very famous thing, a week is too long a time in politics.
Omar, if I can, if I can ask you, Jammu and Kashmir is a small but very significant state. But in terms of how you see politics changing, do you believe that the power of the chief minister, the power of the regional leader can now impact national politics in a way that it never could before?
I think in that respect, very little has changed. Big states in India have always driven what happens in the center. The same is true now. I think it's very misleading to suggest that the states decide what happens in Delhi. It's only the big states. It's the states that contribute 20 plus members of parliament. I mean, with all due respect to Nitish Kumarji and what he's done in Bihar, if he had been Chief Minister of Himachal or Jammu and Kashmir, nobody would have been talking about him as a potential Prime Minister of India. And that's a fact, and we have to live with it. So it's the bigger states, the states like UP, Gujarat, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, states that add up to a lot of members of parliament. They're the ones that have muscle to flex in Delhi, not the smaller states.
Well, Sheila Dikshit, let me ask you this. You have the BJP, which has many prime ministerial candidates, but certainly Gujarat's chief minister is one of them. And one of the reasons is his enormous electoral success in terms of consecutive victories. You actually have the same number of victories, and if you win Delhi again later this year, you'll have one more than him. So are you going to be Rahul Gandhi's Manmohan Singh?
No. Please don't ask me this very embarrassing question, not only politically, but personally also.
You don't see yourself in the race?
No, I am not aspiring for that. I have to try and win the elections in November. And please remember one thing, that Mr. Modi has won 2 elections. And and Keshav Patel or whatever, he was the one who won the first one. And we have won 3 elections consecutively under the Congress party, under one leader. But I personally feel that a party has to win to be able to come to a position where it can form a government in the center, whether it is a conglomeration of several parties or one single party.
Okay, so
no, wait a minute, just 1 minute. Sorry, Barkhaji. Secondly, I think a prime minister primarily has to be one who understands the ethos, the cultural harmony, and all its diversity in India. You have to understand the soul of India. Whoever does that will be the prime minister from whichever party wins the majority.
Before I end, 2014 or 2013 election, any guesses, anybody?
But I would like to just make one quick point, a very small point. When the country's growth rate is 5 and below, why is it that in the same atmosphere of doom and pessimism, there are state after states, we are notching 10% growth? I wish to emphasize that good governance is emerging as the center pole of India's polity.
Okay.
And that is a very good development which we need to be very proud of.
Well, we'll leave it there because this could go on forever. But one thing's for sure, whether small states or big states, something has shifted in Indian politics. And thank you very much to all of you for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you.